this week. Hey everyone, welcome to the Helm Developer Call. We are on day 26 of April 2018. We'll first do some announcements, then stand-ups. If you have any discussion items, we'll ask for those. We have a demo today. If Josh shows up, he'll give us a cool demo, and then we'll do assignments at the end. So let's get started. Does anybody have announcements?
Yeah, I have an announcement. Helm 290 RC5 was released last afternoon, so that's available and testing, and I think that should be the very last of the bugs for the 2.9 release. So hopefully we should be able to test and release out by the end of the week.
Yeah, this is awesome. I don't think we've ever had a release with so many release candidates. So like this release will be perfect, and that'll be awesome. All right, cool. So anybody else have announcements?
If I understand it right, there's no meeting next week because of KubeCon?
Yep, that's correct. I think a lot of us will be there. Usually the Kubernetes community doesn't do a meeting like the week after KubeCon too. So is that something that we have done in the past and want to do? Oh my God, how are you changing your backgrounds? Do you have a green screen behind you, Butcher? That's so dope. That's so dope. Okay, cool. So something to consider is, do we want to have a meeting the week after KubeCon? Usually the Helm folks, everybody and anybody in the Helm community generally like meets up and hangs out during KubeCon EU. So we should just like talk in Slack about if we want to do that and where we want to do that and when we want to do that. And yeah, so anybody else have announcements before we get started with stand-ups? Okay, silence means no. Adam, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so just been doing a bunch of work around the Helm 3 refactoring, just getting stuff cleaned up, deploying out gRPC, cleaning up some commands that we had. Also paired with Fisher on a couple of these bugs for the release, and just helping out with the issue queue when requested. Go Taylor.
There's the mute button. Sorry. Okay, so I haven't done much. The reason behind that is, I guess, announcement. I'm working at Microsoft now. Ta-da! So I have been kind of busy getting like plugged into the mothership and all those types of things that happen with new jobs. So I haven't done nothing, and then I'm attending my sister's graduation this week, so I will not be doing much this week. Next week, I promise I'll be back in there. Feel free to get me involved with any of the Helm 3 work. Like if you want me to help supervise or get over one of like the main, like review any of the things that have to deal with specific parts of it. And I'll also try to keep digging through as many PRs as I can. Also, one note for discussion, I'm wondering if we need some more people who would be maintainers because of how many of these things we need. And so like, I just look at the PR queue and I go, oh my gosh. So anyway, I think it'd be good maybe to at least talk publicly and just not about specific people we want, but just how we might see if we can get some more people involved in the process and what we could do, even if it's not more contributors. So we can talk about that later. Farina.
So I've been kind of digging into the chart scalability problem, particularly the community charts and companies and organizations, and how do we make all of this work a little bit better long term. If you go look at the community charts repo, we have way too many PRs and we just can't keep up with it anymore. And so people are waiting on us, and it's companies trying to distribute their vendor stuff, and how do we make all of this work more smoothly? I've been digging into that alongside repos and index files and stuff like that. Like one of the things that you're going to see that I'm going to probably propose here after I do a little more digging is maybe index.json instead of index.yaml, mostly because the parser uses 1/10 the memory that we use today, and it's faster. So when it comes to scalability issues, that's a great way to solve it. Let's get 1/10 the RAM use, right? By just switching to JSON. I'm going to start poking at some of those things, along with how do we just handle the community charts and one central repo versus it being distributed. I'm digging into that stuff. After KubeCon, I'll have more to talk about it because I'll probably have some more strong opinions then. Let's see, who else? How about Butcher?
I was Sherpa this week, so I Sherpa'd it up and commented on stuff, and have been trying to help the people who are working actively on the 2.9 release get the last few things updated. And I've been reviewing PRs for Helm 3 and did a tiny bit of work on the proposals. So those are the main things I did. I too will be at KubeCon next week, so I'll be out. But the other Helm related, and we automated the helm.sh and docs.helm.sh deployments this week. So those, we're getting closer to having continuous deployment on that stuff. Then when I get back, or while I'm out in Copenhagen, I have a couple items to work on that Helm 3 spec doc and community. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. Justin, you want to go?
Sure. Yeah, I did some issue triage, did a few hours. That's all I've had time for this week. There is some problem with the dependency system as far as like import values thing that we made. Probably gonna take that bug. So someone issued you about that.
Yeah, I looked at that one this morning and was totally stumped.
I had to read it like 20 times to understand what he was talking about. It was the most confusing verbiage the way he did it, but anyway. Is that everybody? Michelle, did you go?
I haven't gone. I don't think I did very much on Helm this week. Sorry, y'all. I traveled and yeah, didn't do anything. Anybody else who hasn't gone? Does anybody else want to do a stand-up from the community?
I haven't gone yet.
Oh, excuse me. Go ahead, Fisher.
It's okay. I've been running notes. So this last week I've been helping out, thanks to help with Adam for a lot of it, for triaging issues in the Helm 2 issue queue, making sure that the release goes along as smoothly as we can. I think we've identified the last few bugs over the last couple of days, and so I've basically been on kind of like a release rampage, kind of helping through the release, and releasing those release candidates as we keep on finding these bugs. So I think that's about it. This week, what I'd like to do is to get a Helm 2.9 release out by the end of the week. Based on just how long the RC has been out there for, I think we've basically beaten this dead horse all the way down. If we have any other bugs, we should probably cut a 2.9.1, I think, at this point. So maybe that could be a discussion point that we want, but that's it for me this week.
Sounds good. Thank you. And does anybody from the community want to say hi or do stand up? If you're new, usually we do an introduction. Yeah, feel free.
Hello.
Hey, Steph. Awesome. Alrighty. Cool. So we can go into demo. Is Josh around? Oh no. He stood us up. That's okay. We'll give him crap in Slack. All right. Discussion items. Matt Farina, did you want to discuss Helm material from the Kubernetes application survey?
Yeah, I figured we asked a bunch of questions. I might as well share what we've got with everyone. There's a blog post about to come out, and you can get to the raw data. I'll share the link there here, but I'll go over some of it right now. Let me mute notifications. It's one of those wonderful things. Mute them, because right as I was about to share my screen, a notification came through. And it's like, no! All right, let me know when you can see this.
We can see that.
All right. So there were 380 people who took the survey, and you can see what percentage. We have 146 said they were using Helm, and 90 said they were evaluating it. And so you'll see that that's about 2/3 of people are using or evaluating Helm right now who took the survey. Now, one of the things about the survey in here, I'll jump back up, hopefully it doesn't break anything, is if you look at the breakdown of people who are doing stuff, you had a lot of people who operate Kubernetes clusters for my organization. And then you have people who say, I operate clusters for app development and I operate apps on Kubernetes. But there's still this very much a cluster operator vibe. And now this was a multi-select, so obviously you can have multiple selections. But we did get a fair number of cluster operators involved in that. And we're also pretty early on the early adopter phase of this. Let me see. Dashboard. One of the things that I think Minikube came up afterwards. Sorry, I'm scrolling to this just to give you context of what this is in. If we go to Minikube, one of the things we see about Minikube is usage, right? Minikube, which is what you use on your developer system, is primarily used on Mac OS and then Linux and then Windows. But if you actually look at like the Stack Overflow survey and you see the primary developer operating systems, you see that Windows has like 49.9% of the market. And so you see we might still be on the early part of the majority in the adopters curve. And you can see that we're still not hitting your average developer because a lot more of them use Windows and not as many are using Minikube here. And so whatever, you see this is not necessarily entirely typical of where we might see things at in a couple of years. Just something to think about. Let me come back to Helm. Nope, past it. So Helm, used by lots of folks. And how would you describe your experience? A lot of these folks have created charts themselves and have used charts created by others. In fact, a lot of people have used charts that were created by others. The default template engine, about 25% of people said no. This really gets into when you start to look at the data though, like why didn't it meet your needs? So some people had preferences. Like I would rather use something else, or there's these confusing things about it. But one of the big takeaways when I started looking at this, and by the way, 45 people took the time to tell us what they thought about it. And some of them, I'm not sure what it means, multiple environments. But one of the things that I noticed is that Go's templating syntax isn't easy to use. And we have Go's templating syntax plus Sprig layered in, and if you just want to go pick it up and learn it, where do you learn it? Like a bunch of people have asked me, what does $ mean? And then I go start pointing to Go docs and try and figure it out. And they're like, I never would have found that out on my own, right? This is not like a well-documented templating system, was one of the things that I picked out of this and some follow-up conversations. So when we hear no, actually digging into some of the reasons for that can bubble up some things that we might be able to do to make it better. So it's worth digging into this. All of this is in the raw data as well. How would you describe usage repository? So the number one is the community, stable and incubator. Then 27% use something like App Registry or Chart Museum. Object storage or static web server is used by about 20%, 19.4. But the next big one on here was using Git with no index file or anything, just sticking your charts in Git as your deployment system. And that was 45%. And then 25% just stuck it somewhere else. No version control, no repository, nothing else. Plugins. Most people don't use plugins. In fact, you can see some of the plugins they used. It's a variety of them. But most people also didn't even know there were plugins. It was not very discoverable. And so that's something we might be able to help with. And then we got into questions like, what do you like about Helm? Templating. A common thing in here was actually config management. And then what would you like to see added? There's 114 ideas people responded to. What would you like to see added or changed? Well, you got 125 of what do you like? And so there's a lot of wealth of information here. Community charts. They're 25% or more than 25% of people are operating community charts in production. And then a lot of people actually use it as the foundation for what they do run, and they store it elsewhere. And only about 20% use it for demo purposes. This copying thing is more than I actually anticipated. So this was neat for me to pluck this out. And then we got some quick things about what do you like and what do you want to see changed, and we got a bunch of feedback on that. Also, as you can see, we go into Compose. Compose is not highly used. All of this data and all these charts are going to end up showing up in a slide deck. We're going to try and make it easy to come to, but I thought I would just share that with y'all here. Do you have any questions about it before I stop screen sharing, or anything you want me to go back to?
Have you shared a link with us?
The responses, no, this is not. I'll share some links afterwards. I got to go dig them up.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could
I'd like
export that to PDF, because the raw data is really hard to read through.
It really is. And we're trying to come up with ways to visualize and pluck things out of it. I'll see what I can do to make it. I'm working on coming up with ways to make this easier to consume.
Okay, yeah, it'd just be good for the Helm 3 stuff to see some of the feedback that some people.
Yeah, and we do have it in a spreadsheet form where all of the stuff is in a spreadsheet, and then you can make a copy of it and slice it and dice it and do what you want. It's not the easiest, and I'm looking to pull out some of to make it a little easier. That's what I'll be doing the rest of this week and next week, trying to make the information more consumable. The very first thing, because it just ended, is we're sharing the raw spreadsheet and then trying to take the charts and everything and make it easy, and then look for insights in there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. It's like very helpful. All right. So we also wanted to talk about getting more like Helm maintainers for the issue in PRQ. So Taylor, you want to start that convo?
And I think Adam already has some thoughts.
But no, I just wanted to throw in another one, which kind of piggybacks on, or can relate to this as well, is testing coverage. But we can start with you, Taylor, if you want.
Okay, I actually have thoughts on that too. So we'll start with this. I'm interested on people's thoughts about either getting more maintainers or finding a solution to managing all the uptick in usage, because as that survey shed some more interesting light, that 2/3 of the respondents, I don't know statistically how much we could apply that across to the Kubernetes community or not, because it's not a random sample, but suffice it to say that there's lots and lots of like work going on around this, and I'm not sure. I want to keep responding to the community, and I know we've been slow on some of these things, and not intentionally, because we just always are bogged down with getting ourselves out of a hole of PRs and issues. And so I'm just wondering if we can start either enabling certain people who are contributing a lot to the queue who'd be willing to at least like help us with some of the reviews and stuff, and we can change our policy that those reviews count for a merge, or if we want to see if we can maybe put some feelers out there to see if there's anyone who would like to help join as a maintainer. I don't know. So I wanted to get people's thoughts and opinions.
Yeah, so I like the idea of more maintainers to help with the day-to-day. I know some people are focused on some of the bigger problems and the forward-looking problems, but slogging through the day-to-day PRs can be a little bit difficult.
This is a tricky one, because what concerns me is all the regressions we've had, especially with this release, where we've been not giving PRs the adequate reviews because of this issue, and stuff has been getting in without good test coverage, or we're not manually testing it correct. We're not working.
And we have no E2E tests, which would help with this too.
Yeah, it would help, but I think a lot of it is just the review process, and we need people who are enabled to even push back on community, because we get a lot of pressure just to push and get stuff done, and for their individual feature, which we saw with one of the big issues with this regression was around that, where we were hesitant about getting something in. They pushed hard enough that we accepted it. It broke for other users. So just getting people more on board is great and would be helpful, but we need to make sure we give them the adequate time with us to make sure that they fully understand our quality standards for code coming in.
This
Yeah.
is, I had a kind of a comment about that too, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
So I take a look occasionally at issues that pop up, and I don't think we have a standard, right? Like list your Helm version and standard like troubleshooting or diagnostic output. So I'm not sure if maybe we have a lot of duplicate issues, or maybe we're assuming that it's in a certain version, but the issue is actually in a different one, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's something we talked about right after Helm Summit. I don't know if we ever did the issue template.
We did.
Okay.
We did do an issue template, but also something else that was kind of interesting that's actually stuff you brought up, which is nice, is diagnostic information in the sense of like not just the Helm version, but also just like a lot of the time slogging through the issue queue seems to be going through and trying to reproduce the bug or going through the steps. Or at least trying to figure out how to go through and reproduce the steps. If there was a way that we could somehow reproduce the steps in a more automated fashion for issue triaging, that might make it a little bit simpler. But going back to the point about pushing back on features and that kind of stuff, and I think that attests a lot to like, I think it's just kind of like a natural contention between what is a feature that we should ship and when do we say that it is okay enough to ship? And I think we haven't really defined that yet with tests, end-to-end tests or unit tests or anything like that, documentation. It's just been more of like, hey, this would be a nice thing that we could do. But yeah, I fully agree on that.
I have a similar problem in that the scope of features, right? It's more of, it's so subjective, and you don't want to put someone in the community, you don't want to dissuade them from contributing, but at the same time we can't be all things to everyone, and especially as we head towards Helm 3, we still got a lot of bugs and regressions in Helm 2 that we want to shore up. So how do we like kind of tone down the feature requests and get everybody on the bug train? Yeah, I don't know the answer, but I see that as a big problem though, is trying to kind of corral the features, and say maybe we're on live. Now I know we're not on live support yet, but we're headed towards live support.
I think about the queues a little differently. Like my big concern with the PR queue is, I don't really know where to start, and it seems like and you alluded to this, but it seems like we just kind of like get as much as possible into like the next release. And I think we need to like slow down a little bit and set expectations for the community. Like just because you got your PR and you got your feature, and doesn't mean that it's going to go out in this next release. Maybe, we have too many features and we only feel comfortable shipping X many features together out in a release. And we could like label a feature, even if it's reviewed, like this goes out in the next, not in this release, but the next release, because it's maybe too close to this release, or we could just say like, this is going to take some time, and we just aren't going to be able to get it out in this release. I think that we have to be more comfortable setting those kinds of expectations, and maybe labeling like what exactly needs to go in to release. Maybe it's just a me thing, I don't know, but I can't really tell what bugs are super critical and need to go out and need to be reviewed in a particular release. So doing some labeling in the PR queue as well might be helpful.
So I'm going to volunteer myself. Farina normally seems to volunteer himself for these things, but I'm going to take a stab at maybe defining the criteria for this, as we've kind of talked about, like what we would consider ready for a release, and how we'll put it in there, and what's required to get it to that state. And then also put together a PR template, or sorry, not PR template, issue template into the repo. I can volunteer to do that next week, not this week, and move us forward. Does that sound like an okay thing? And I can bring it here and present it in the demo time?
It sounds like an excellent thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will take that on and try to get it at least a good first pass.
So this kind of started as a, do we want more maintainers, and switched into a few different things.
Group therapy.
Group therapy.
Well, we want more maintainers, but with conditions.
With conditions. Another stab at it is, excuse me, Steph, I think you're talking. Also, I have a habit of talking over people. So another idea is, like, we could have different levels of issue queue triagers, like someone who reproduces and like puts the label on it, and someone else who maybe like needs to be called to dig deeper because they think this is more like critical than maybe it seems at first pass. So I don't know what the levels would be, but that's just another thought. Steph, did you have something you wanted to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, even if they're not contributors, I mean, it takes more people to say go through the bugs and label them. Like if you want to go as formal as issuing like a CVE score, it could. I'm just saying it's time consuming, but it could be helpful in determining like which bugs are important for a release.
I don't know what a CVE score is, but that sounds like a good idea.
Critical vulnerability.
I see.
I've got to bounce, guys. Good
All
to
right.
see you. Have a good
Oh,
week.
okay. It looks like we are at time. I think that there are two more items. Adam, can we talk about testing coverage after KubeCon, or do you think it's critical?
Yeah, we basically covered
Okay, cool. And
to vent about.
thank you. And Fisher, the 2.9 release topic. Do you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah. Do we have an agreement that we'd want to cut a 2.9 prior to KubeCon?
I have to drop, but yes. And now I'm going to drop. Mic drop.
Release it Friday afternoon as everyone's leaving town.
I mean, we got that last issue closed, right?
Which issue are you referring to?
The issue with no plugin support for authentication.
Oh, that one Adam and I paired on yesterday, and we
Yeah.
PR'd that and fixed it, and it's
Yeah,
in
I
the
looked at the
RC5.
So if we're done with that one, I think it's fine to just go straight to the 2.9.0 release.
Okay.
Because we've had, I mean, the RCs are, I mean, at some point you got to cut the Gordian knot on the RC and just say, okay, we're not going to leave it open anymore to see if anybody comes up with bugs. So let's just do the release
Okay.
on 2.9.0 and then start the 2.9.1 fixes for the next.
All right.
All right, let's take this to Slack. Thanks so much, everyone, and thank you for the extra minute.
We got to do elections.
Oh, yeah, thank you. You're right. Who wants to be issue Sherpa?
I guess I will, because I'm the only one that's going to be around.
So, well, I do have my thought.
Someone said something? Okay. PR Sherpa? Or Sherpas?
Yeah, I guess that's me too.
Adam, do you want to take notes next week too and moderate?
I guess so. It's going to be a one-man show.
Are we skipping next week?
Yeah, we are.
I put a note on skipping for next week, so this would be for the following week, right?
No, I was just this would be for the following week. Yep, you're right. So did we have a notes volunteer?
I'll volunteer to take notes. I'll be the
Okay.
flunky for next time.
And a moderator? Matt Fisher. All right, cool. All right, thank you. Thank you for the 3 minutes. Bye.